Hi, I'm Yasmin D'Souza, and this is BoomGen TV's update number 33. In the first of our series looking at Iran and the politics of human rights, we cover the shift in the policies of the U.S. government. Fact, the Obama State Department has cut funding for certain human rights groups concentrating on Iran. Critics think the fight for human rights are being sacrificed for nuclear negotiations between the West and Iran. Others believe this is a smart move away from the disastrous policies of the last 8 years. Earlier, I spoke with Dr. Cynthia Boaz, a writer for truthout.org and contributor to the Huffington Post. Cynthia is a professor of political science at Sonoma State University with a concentration in human rights and nonviolent movements. Hi, Cynthia. How are you? Thanks for talking to us today.
Hi, Yasmin. Thanks for having me.
So, Cynthia, what do you think Obama is doing right now in regards to the Middle East, and especially in regards to sort of that funding that he's pulled recently?
I think it's actually important to get some context on that because at first glance, it looks like the Obama administration is withdrawing support for democracy around the world, which is exactly the opposite of what they're trying to do. But in fact, I think what President Obama has done is I think he's recognized that there is a cost and a liability to continuing to be complicit or enable that perception that the United States is behind these different mass nonviolent civil uprisings around the world. And so withdrawing funds for these particular kinds of agencies is a really symbolic gesture that he is genuinely intending to move away from the policies of the Bush doctrine.
Do you think the Obama administration is taking a correct path in regards to engagement with Iran right now?
I think that it's totally essential that the president does find a way to engage directly with the administration because I think he understands that total isolation is not going to be good for anybody. But I think he has to walk the line between some form of constructive engagement and then also, not giving the appearance of granting legitimacy to this administration in Iran.
And who's to say that the United States engages Iran on its human rights record, that's actually even going to change anything, because it really hasn't worked with countries like Russia and with countries like China.
I don't mean any disrespect to people of Russia or to people of China, but the major difference here, in my mind, is that in neither of those countries do we see yet a mass, nonviolent, organized resistance to injustice and to oppression in the way that we do in Iran. I think that that's probably the thing that makes the Iran case the most different from those other two.
So specifically with Iran, what needs to happen in order for the nonviolent movement to gain strength?
One of the most important things that movement can do, in fact, the most important thing that they can do, is to maintain what's called nonviolent discipline, to resist the urge to engage in any form of violent response or retaliation against the oppressor, regardless of how brutal or degrading their activities are, partly because there's obviously a moral argument or an ethical argument for that, but also, more importantly, from a strategic standpoint, it makes it that much more difficult for the oppressor to respond with violence. Any act or use of violence on the part of the oppressor in that situation undermines their legitimacy further and confirms that they believe that they're in a position of relative weakness. There's a notion of what are called pillars of support in nonviolent struggles, and the idea is that no oppressive regime can stay in power by itself. It's always supported by somebody, institutions or organizations, either from within or from the outside, and that'll usually take the form of things like security forces, sometimes media, businesses, and in some cases the international community. And I think in the Iranian case, public opinion and is a major potential pillar of support. And so shifting people away from that pillar and making ongoing human rights violations and, genuine and calling for genuine democracy in Iran have to be priorities of the international community generally.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. I really appreciate it. That was a really wonderful interview.
Thank you so much. I'm glad I had a chance to talk to you.